President Abraham Lincoln, 1846. Abraham Lincoln can be considered one of the most influential and famous people in American history after his many works. Lincoln, who was born in 1809 and died in 1865, was influential because, having been elected president during one of the most difficult periods in American history, he paved his way to abolish slavery and establish stability in the country. The Library of Congress noted that this daguerreotype is one of the first pictures of Lincoln at the age of 37. When this photo was taken, he was a border lawyer in Springfield and one of the few elected congressmen from Illinois. Based on information provided by Gibson Harris, a law student who served in Lincoln's office, it is believed that this photograph was taken by Nicholas Shepard between 1845 and 1847. President Andrew Jackson, 1844 to 1845. Andrew Jackson was born into a low-income family in 1767, but did not allow this to determine who he would become in the following years. After much hard work and determination, Jackson became a war hero, lawyer, and president-elect of the United States of America. He classified himself as a human being, but based on some of those people who had to work with him directly and indirectly, they classified him as an oppressor. History finds his treatment of Native Americans appalling and shameful. In the early days, the U.S. Supreme Court granted the Cherokee a piece of land, but Georgia challenged it. When they turned to Jackson to help them, he simply turned away and never listened to their plight. Instead, his neglect led to what is known as the Trail of Tears, a period where thousands of Cherokees were killed. According to the records, this photograph was taken by Edward Anthony between 1844 and 1845 and was taken by Matthew Brady's studio. Annie Oakley, 1899. Apparently, her name wasn't Annie Oakley, as we assumed, but that doesn't change the fact that she was an excellent marksman. At the tender age of 15, Oakley managed to outsmart Frank Butler, a professional sniper. A few years later, Butler married Oakley and made her his assistant and travel partner. The two worked so well that Oakley eventually surpassed Butler, and in turn, Butler became her assistant instead. Oakley became a well-known figure in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show and demonstrated her greatness in marksmanship. She managed to shoot glass balls when they were thrown into the air, play cards, and once perfectly knock a cigarette out of Butler's mouth. Chief Sitting Bull called her a confident little shot, and Queen Victoria called her a very smart little girl. Arthur Wellesley, 1st Duke of Wellington, 1844. Arthur Wellesley was born in 1769, and among the many official titles he received, the most recognized was the 1st Duke of Wellington. He was also the commander of the British Army that fought the Napoleonic Wars. He did a lot over the years, which brought him the recognition he needed before he died in 1852. Wellesley became a well-known European figure after his victory at the Battle of Waterloo. Moreover, a powerful hero who is highly regarded by all who knew him. His beloved character earned him the position of Prime Minister of Great Britain from 1828 to 1830. Billy the Kid, 1878. Billy the Kid is the nickname given to Henry McCarthy, a famous figure in history who was born in 1859. Interestingly, his name alone was not a decisive factor for him, but more so for those who managed to rise through his existence. He was also known as William H. Bonney, but unfortunately, he only lived to be 21, as he was killed by Pat Garrett, the sheriff of Fort Sumner, New York. The photo shown here is just one of two that are said to exist by McCarthy and were discovered in a pile of photographs that were stacked in a junk store in Fresno, California. It was found by a historical collector back in 2010. The photo was taken in the summer of 1878 when he was returning from a wedding with his friends and family. Buffalo Bill Cody, 1911. We all know him as Buffalo Bill, but he was born William Frederick Cody in 1846. He went down in history as a Pony Express rider, a trailblazer, and was also a popular face in Buffalo Bill's films The Wild West and the Congress of the Rough Riders of the World. Cody's appearance on the Wild West show gave him celebrity status, one of the first to be considered as such in the world. How did he get the name Buffalo Bill? The story goes that in 1867, Cody signed a contract to supply buffalo meat to the Eastern Department workers responsible for the construction of the Union Pacific Railroad. Bill excelled when it came to his theatrical stunts, but his horseback riding and marksmanship were outstanding traits of his character. This is confirmed by his impeccable long-term service as an intelligence officer for U.S. Army Lieutenant General Philip Sheridan. Butch Cassidy, 1900. Butch Cassidy was born Robert Leroy Parker in 1866 and can be considered one of the most intriguing criminals of the Old West, if you believe the stories. John D. Barton of the University of Utah noted that Cassidy and his gang operated at the turn of the century and committed the largest number of train and bank robberies ever recorded in the history of Western America. The photo pictured here was cut from what is popularly known as the Fort Worth Five, as Cassidy was sitting among his cronies, known as the Wild Gang. John Schwartz is responsible for this photo, as it was taken at his studio in Fort Worth, Texas, in 1900. The Wild Gang featured many famous characters of the time, including Flat-Nosed Curry, Kid Curry, News Carver, Elsie Lay, the Tall Texan, the Sundance Kid, Bob Mix, Laura Bullion, and Camille Deaf Charlie Hanks. Calamity Jane, 1901. Martha Jane Cannery was born in 1852 and was better known as Calamity Jane. She was an American border guard and discussed the tall tales and legends of the Wild West in every conversation. The photo shown here was taken in 1901 when she was at her home in Livingston, Montana. There are many stories about who Calamity Jane really was, and of course many of them may be myths, so many that we cannot identify the only truth. In any case, most historical records refer to her as a dishwasher who served at Fort Bridger, a Union Pacific worker, a scout for General Custer, and a teamster. But given all these stories, we can say with confidence that she was a performer, an enterprising person, and knew what it meant to go through a hard life. Charles Darwin, 1869. Charles Darwin was an English naturalist who was far superior to most famous scientists known in history and had a greater impact than most. He was born in 1809 and was the foundation on which modern evolutionary research was built and which has been sought to this day. Darwin played an important role throughout his life, as at the time of his death, evolutionary imagery was already a part of politics, science, and literature. The photo pictured here was taken by Julia Margaret Cameron, who was also responsible for filming other historical characters such as John Herschel and Alfred Tennyson. You can find a description of this photograph at the Victoria and Albert Museum, which details the life of Darwin and his family after moving to the Isle of Wight, where they rented a cottage and the privilege of being honored by such great people. Later, Cameron made an exact copy of the photo so that it would last longer. Daniel Bakeman, the last surviving soldier of the Revolutionary War, 1868. Daniel Bakeman was born in 1759 and lived a full life until he died in 1869. Bakeman went down in history as one of the last 14 survivors of the Revolutionary War and the last to receive a pension. During the last 4 years of his service, he worked under Captain Van Arnhem and Colonel Marinus Willett. The records show that he was always present when he was approached, especially on political occasions. As he called it, Independence Day, Bakeman could be seen walking through the neighborhood with his musket on his shoulder, firing and shouting, "Hooray!" It is also worth noting that in those days, he got up very early in the morning. The oldest photo portrait of a woman. This is a portrait of Hannah Stilley, born in 1746. What's even more intriguing is that she was 30 years old when the United States was formed. 94-year-old Hannah Stilley was captured for centuries in 1840. Although the original daguerreotype of this portrait has not been the picture itself appeared in Alva Gorby's book, The Gorby Family, History and Genealogy, 1936. The first news photo. This is a snapshot of the arrest procedure in France in 1847. The daguerreotype of the incident is one of the oldest photos that accompanied the news. This is how the tendency arose to reinforce all news information with visual confirmation. The oldest photo of the Alamo. This 1849 daguerreotype is considered to be the oldest photograph of the Alamo Chapel. The photo was taken by an unknown author before the buildings of the Alamo Fortress were repaired and rebuilt in 1850 by the American Army. During the renovation, the exterior of the building was significantly changed. The first passport photo. The United States is considered the first country to use passport photos, and it has been mandatory since 1914. The United Kingdom followed the United States, followed by all other countries. This is a sample of an American passport dated March 2, 1915, with the very first photo discovered. The document belongs to 33-year-old Margaret Sanger, who traveled under the pseudonym Bertha Watson. If you love vintage photographs and want to immerse yourself in the atmosphere of the past, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Here you will find unique snapshots, interesting stories, and captivating facts about celebrities and events that have left their mark in history. Support us with a like so we can continue sharing this amazing collection with you.